Hello and welcome to day 106 of Dungeon23, the series where we make a room of a mega dungeon every day for a year. If this is your first episode, you have quite a bit of a back catalog to get through, but they're only 4 minutes each, about. Some are longer. So, get at it. Anyway, so today is going to be a pretty relatively empty room, like space-wise, but there are some chests in here of various different materials and different like lock strengths, and some of them have some pretty cool things in it. Some of them are, as you can see, invisible. It's a bit weird, but we'll go like in a counterclockwise way, just so order of like the lockpick strength or difficulty of opening rather, because I don't want to go from this way because players aren't necessarily going to come from this way. But anyway, so this first chest here is a wooden chest that is locked, as you know, 17 HP, 13 AC, because it's an old wooden chest. It's not very strong or anything. This wooden chest is locked with a DC 14 lock. Walk over, make a lockpick check, or thieves' tools specifically. You don't really use thieves' tools for anything other than picking locks and probing traps, so, you know, it's a lockpick, essentially. And you could also make a DC 15 perception check to hear like the sounds of scuttling and things scurrying around inside the chest. That's because the chest also has within it a swarm of spiders, a medium swarm of spiders. They have basically all the things that a normal swarm does, immunity to a bunch of things because they're technically not one creature, but a swarm of them, like petrification and exhaustion, I think, fear and charm, because there's too many of them. You charm one tiny individual spider and then it runs off, but there's like 1,000 more. So they're all in there, scurrying around, and they're hostile. They'll attack you once you unlock the door and let them out. Other than that, it also contains a sling and some ammo, and also an old stuffed toy, like a plush toy, resembling a large fly. And it could be used for a number of things. The first thing is kind of like a little joke because, you know, it's a big fly in a giant spider web of a floor, which is the theme we're going for this floor. There's the fact that, you know, it could probably use as bait, kind of, you know, throw into a web and distracts it, you know, as a distraction. Or maybe, like, gives advantage when you're trying to use animal handling to calm down those other giant spiders. Because, I mean, they are animals. They're not evil. They're not, like, hostile because they are malicious. They're just giant animals that are probably hungry. And that's basically all that's in this wooden chest. It's very mundane, other than the fact that there's spiders in it that'll attack you. But it's pretty basic. The second one is the lead chest. I was going to tint it, but I forgot to, so we're not going to do that. Now let's go over and just see this really quick. Really high HP of 61, pretty hardy to get through, to chop through. And it has a DC 17, or rather an AC of 17. So it's pretty difficult to actually even hit, because it's just swing away. It's a giant block of lead. It's not the strongest metal, but it's thick, and it's heavy, and it's resilient. This extremely heavy chest is made out of solid lead. I mean, it's hollow, it's still a chest, but it's not, like, plated with lead. Which also means that it does block magic items, which I should probably put, but I think that's kind of understood, because that's in the spell description of detect magic and things like that, where you can't see through an inch of lead. Anyway, so when it is unlocked, it's not locked. However, it's made of lead, so lifting the lid up is really, really heavy. It's hard to do. So it's a DC 17 strength check to open or close it, because, you know, you put it over and to hold it up, it's a whole pain in the ass. Or a DC 19 to do so quietly, because it's really heavy and made of metal. If that thing slams shut or slams open, it's gonna be loud, and it may alert other little creatures inside the dungeon, or this floor rather. So it's quite tricky to open. Although, you know, players could say, well, we're gonna wedge a crowbar and then make a lever, and then that basically works, because, you know, that's, you know, basically how levers work. And like maybe use a crowbar for advantage, or like they slowly like put like pieces of wood and slowly like lift it up that way and wedge it open, so they don't have to worry about it slamming open or close or something like that. Or like cast silence on the area so they can't do that, you know. Any number of things to make this work. And inside it contains a horn of gunpowder and a bag of 50 ball bearings made out of lead. Basically like things for guns, muskets, rifles, things that people say doesn't belong in D&D, but D&D also has 1920s era Lovecraftian warlocks and 1970s Shaolin Kung Fu monks. So we're just gonna ignore those people who say guns don't belong in D&D because, frankly, it's stupid and they have precedent for existing. Anyway, this is a fun little theme with them. And other than that, it also has a section of lead pipe, which basically is just a lead pipe. But when used as an improvised weapon, so again, you don't have proficiency because it's improvised, it ignores a creature's immunity or resistance to non-magical bludgeoning damage. And my reason for that is basically, well, one, it's a sucky weapon anyway, and things like shillelagh or cantrips or basically any of the other magic items that are found in this dungeon up to this point will circumvent that resistance anyway, because that's just how resistances work. But also it's because lead is basically like anti-magic, or rather magic is like radiation, and lead disrupts that. It doesn't let it go through. So it's this basically lead pipe just that you found that you're using to beat to death a devil or like a dragon, or I don't know if dragons have resistance to that, like a ghost, by virtue of them being like, they're made out of this magical radiation, and you're just like cutting through that with this lead that does not let it pass through. So it's more of like a joke because it's funny, the idea of like beating a ghost to death with a lead pipe, or also because it just makes sense that, you know, lead would disrupt magic. And that's why I like the idea of like guns being like anti-magic. Like mage hunters, witch hunters, mage slayers, they use guns because like magic doesn't affect lead well. So just shooting a bunch of small pellets of lead at a guy who's like, you cast shield. Okay, well this is lead, and lead doesn't deal with magic well, you know. I don't know that, but I like the idea of mage slayers using guns because it's kind of like the antithesis, isn't it? Like magic is this very carefully cultivated and studied, prestigious thing that only a minority of people can use, whereas guns are like, the entire purpose is that anyone can use them. It's an equalizer. It's, you know, a classic saying, God made man, Colt made them equal, you know, or Smith & Wesson made them equal, depending on who you ask. I think it was Browning. Anyway, so pretty basic, just a fun little gimmick about making sound and being heavy and that stuff. You could probably like want to maybe pick it up and throw it at somebody. I don't know. This next guy is pretty fun too. It's just a simply locked iron chest. No special gimmick with it, although it is pretty tough. Really high HP, really high AC. So your best bet is just to lock it, or lock pick it, and that's going to be a DC 19 lock. It's pretty tough. And because that's such like a high DC, it's a pretty good loot. It has a +1 mace, just a regular +1 mace, which is weird calling a magical mace regular, but uncommon item. A bouquet of dried flowers, which can be used as the rare herbs aspect of the Find Familiar spell. And that's one issue I do have with like spell casting, rather spell material components for spell casting, is that when it says like, oh, like however many gold pieces worth of material, well, that basically just says go to town and pay the money to do the thing, instead of like, well, I have like herbalism kits, which herbalism kit doesn't do anything. Like, it's make health potions or graft plants, and that's basically all herbalism kits do. When like harvesting spell ingredients should be something that would fall under that for the most part, especially considering it requires rare herbs and incense, which are what plants are made out of. Or they're made out of plants, rather. So anyway, you can just use that in the brazier for the Find Familiar spell. If your familiar dies, you know, this is, again, made with the intention of there being a wizard, a rogue, a fighter, and a cleric. And the final thing is a comically large prosthetic nose made of solid iron. That may seem random, but it kind of isn't. Or kind of is. I don't know. So, a few days ago, we made a room with a spider jockey in it for Minecraft. Basically a skeleton riding a spider. And way deeper in the dungeon, I want to have like an iron golem that is unactivated. It's deactivated. And you activate it by putting this iron nose in place. And I think that's really funny. And it's also a really cool reference to Minecraft because frankly, everything is better with a Minecraft reference. But also, it's just really, really funny how like the nose is the key, because like they're known for having big noses in Minecraft because that's the design, which is funny. And that's basically this one here. And this was my original idea, this chest here, but I kind of put more here to flesh it out, so it's a bit more fleshed out as a idea. And let's go to our, let's see here, GM to find this guy, because it's invisible, so it's obviously going to be on the GM layer. It's just like a regular wooden chest. I was thinking about making it glass because to fit in with the theme, but it's just regular wooden. It is unlocked and it's very small, but it's also invisible. So basically the party has to like walk over here and trip over it, or they have to have see invisibility or feel around the room with like a 10-foot pole or something like that. Or you fill the room with like a fog cloud. You notice like there's a small empty space in the fog cloud. And I do have a problem with fog cloud because it's a bit weird with how it does like obfuscation and like heavy cover and stuff. I don't like that. The way I would have it is that it just gives you cover, like half cover or 3/4 cover. Because I think like having a cloud of +2 HP, or not HP, AC, but also like disadvantage on perception checks is a lot better than just all the attacks of everyone here disadvantage. Because I think that's a bit either too good or too bad depending on your circumstances. But that's just me. I have no plans on changing anything with it so far, so I don't know. Anyway, so what this has is things that are invisible, because the chest isn't magical in that it makes things inside of it invisible, because that's be pretty good to have, the party to have. It's just that the chest itself is invisible, and so are the things within it. And it has 1d4 plus 1 invisible arrows, basically arrows that are invisible. So the cool thing about him is that you fire them, it hits a creature, they're disoriented, they have a sharp pain, they feel something but they can't see it, it's caused confusion, and it's pain, it's terrifying, it it makes them worried, it psychs them out. Or it hits or doesn't hit and it falls to the ground and they hear the sound, they look around, they don't see an arrow because it's not there, because it's invisible, and they continue on. A little bit suspicious, but not as suspicious as if they just saw an arrow sticking into the wall. So it's really good for like stealthing. However, if you miss, you're probably never gonna find it again unless you have like see invisibility, or you go over that room with a fine-tooth comb, because things bounce, like arrows hitting stone bounce all over the place. It's not something you could expect to get back. The other thing is just an invisible pair of pants, because that's funny to me for some reason. And also a golden cup worth 2,000, not 2,000, that's way too much, 200 gold piece. That is also invisible. So it's a very valuable, like ornately carved, very well made like goblet of solid gold. Now, how do you tell it's gold if it's invisible? It could be made of lead. Well, with a DC 16 smiths or jeweler's tools, basically things used to like make metal and make jewelry and stuff like that, to like determine if you specialize in those skills, or those tools rather, you could be able to identify this better. To basically identify it as gold and say, hey, this is soft, you feeling it, it feels like really well made. So yeah, this is probably a very valuable thing. It's just that it's also invisible, so maybe you want to like dispel magic on it. I mean, dispel magic would work, obviously, but also like maybe it's more valuable because it's invisible. It's a neat gimmick. You could put wine in it, like there's a floating bubble of wine above your hand or something like that. Players like to keep weird things, and that's fine because everyone likes to have weird treasures. And that is basically the room. These 4 chests. I didn't give this guy stats for stuff because it's not planned to be broken into, but it's just basically the same as this guy, maybe a little bit weaker. But yeah, so this is our room. Very, very simple, although not very simple. Actually, not very simple at all, but it's a room with 4 chests, all varying gimmicks, very fun and interesting, allows for some creative problem solving and also some cool items, and you want players to have that. So yeah, this has been day 106. Thanks for watching or listening, whatever you're doing. If you want to see more, come back tomorrow, or you can like, comment, and subscribe to have it show up in your recommendations. Or you could, there's a little bell notification thing guy. But I'm pretty sure that doesn't work, so you could try it. I don't know. Or just, yeah, come back tomorrow because it's a daily event. It happens every day at 12:30 p.m. Just after noon. EST. Just wait until the next day and you'll see when it drops. Anyway, I apologize for the poor quality. It's not going to get any better.